Good morning, students. I welcome you all for Commerce class. Today we are going to start with a new unit, Unit 8, the Sale of Goods Act 1930 and the Negotiable Instrument Act 1881. Under this unit, the first chapter, that is chapter 21, is about the Sale of Goods Act 1930. Let us discuss it briefly. Please listen carefully, students. Meaning of sales of goods. So, sale of goods is one of the most important acts coming under special contract. This act was passed in the year 1930. So, students, sale of goods is very important because once a goods has been manufactured or once a goods has been produced, it has to be sold. So, sale of goods is most important act. So, prior to this act, it was governed by Chapter 7 of the Indian Contracts Act 1872. So, contracts for the sale of goods are subjected to general legal principles applicable to all contracts. Hence, the general provisions of Indian Contract Act continue to apply to the contract for the sale of goods. Next, we'll move on with formation of contract of sale. So, contract of sale of goods means what? The contract between the seller and the buyer. Here, contract of sale of goods is a contract whereby the seller transfers or agrees to transfer the property, that is the ownership of the goods, to the buyer for the price paid by the buyer. The term ownership is utmost important in the sale of goods because students, you have to clearly understand that sale means selling the ownership of the goods to the buyer for a price besides transferring the physical possession of the goods. So the ownership will get transferred once the sale has been made. So mere possession of the goods does not entitle a person to ownership. So normally when a seller, when he purchases the goods, he will be the owner. But the ownership will not give mere possession. Similarly, purchase means buying the ownership of the goods from the seller for a price. Normally, as you know, the term ownership or a property owned confers on the buyer an absolute freedom to dispose of the assets in any way as they like. That is, after purchasing the asset or a property, the buyer can sell the property or dispose the property, that is that particular asset, in any way he likes. So the buyer has an ultimate rights of the property purchase, that is the asset purchase against the old world. In this text, you have to listen carefully that it is essential to learn the essential elements of a contract for sale. So, what are the essential elements? That's what we are going to see next. Let us now move on with essential elements of a contract of sale. So, the following are the essential elements that are necessary for a contract of sale. The first element is two parties are required for the contract of sale to be fulfilled. So, a contract of sale involves two parties, that is, the seller and the buyer. The buyer and the seller should be two different persons. If a person buys his own goods, there is no sale. On the dissolution of partnership, when the surplus assets including goods were distributed among the partners, the court held that it was not a sale attracting sales tax. So the partners were themselves joint owners of the goods and they could not be both the seller and the buyer. In this partnership, as we saw, same way when the product is sold, there must be a buyer to purchase it. However, there is one exception. When the goods of a person are sold in execution of a decree, he himself may buy the goods to retain their ownership. Decree means official order or a command by the court of law. Students, let me give an example where a person has purchased a product, that is, a buyer has purchased from seller. Suppose if it is of defective quality, means what normally the buyer will do? He will file a case in the court. So, after filing a case in the court, if a court orders that the seller has to purchase the same product, means no other go, what he has to do? He will purchase the same product. That here is given. So, when the goods of a person are sold in execution of a decree, it's the same as I have given the example, students. Next element is transfer of property. Normally, to constitute a sale, the seller must transfer or agree to transfer the ownership of the goods to the buyer. So the mere transfer of possession does not amount to sale. Next is goods. So goods means what? The product which is being sold. So the subject matter of the contract of sale is what? Must be goods. It excludes money, actionable claims and immovable property. The term goods includes very kind of movable property alone like stocks and shares, growing crops, etc. Goodwill, trademarks, copyrights, patent right, etc. are also regarded as goods. Next element is price, that is the money value, the monetary system. The monetary has to be considered for the goods sold is called the price. If goods are exchanged for goods, it is only barter system and not a sale. So understood students, if the goods have been exchanged for goods means it is not a sale and their price is not been fixed for the product. But if goods are sold partly for goods and partly for money, the contract is one of sale. So partly for money, partly for goods means that is called sales. So the next and the last element of contract of sale is it includes both sale and agreement to sell. That is, the term contract of sale includes both sale and agreement to sell if the property in goods is transferred immediately to the buyer. It is called sale has been taken place immediately. But on the other hand, if the transfer of property takes place at a future date means a future period or on fulfillment of certain conditions, it is called as agreement to sell. That is buying for credit. So payment will be made later. So that is future. In future only the goods will be handed over to the buyer. That is called as agreement of sale. Next, we'll move on with difference between sale and agreement to sell. The first base of difference is ownership transference. So, in sale, the property is immediately transferred to the buyer so that the seller is no more owner. But in case of agreement to sell, the property, that is the ownership or title of the goods, has to pass at a future time or after the fulfillment of certain conditions specified in the contract. The next difference is risk of loss. So loss is a risk for the person. So what will be the risk of loss? That's what we are going to see. Under the sale, where the goods sold under the contract of sale are destroyed, the loss falls squarely on the buyer as the ownership in the goods has already passed on to the latter, even though the goods are in the possession of seller. Here what they are telling is, after this contract of sale has been made, if the goods are destroyed, the buyer only has to bear the loss. In case of agreement to sell, where the goods under the agreement to sell are destroyed, the loss falls squarely on the seller only, as the ownership is still vested with the seller, even though the possession of the goods is with the buyer. Only the contract has been made. When the contract has been made, here what happens? The possession only goes to the buyer, but the products has not still reached the hands of the buyer. So when once the goods have been destroyed, here the seller has to bear the loss. Next distinction is consequences of violating the contract. Basis of distinction. What result or what problem they have to face in case of violating the contract? Violating the contract means not going according to the contract. So, in case of sale, where the buyer fails to pay the price, the seller cannot seize the goods. The seller can only file a case against the buyer for violating the contract of sale. Here, in case of agreement to sell, if the buyer violates the contract, the seller can repossess the goods from the former. He can sue for damages for violation of the contract. Who can sue? The seller can sue. Next base of distinction is nature of contract. So it is executed contract. That is, it is a completed contract in case of contract of sale. But in case of agreement to sell, it is an executory contract going to be executed, yet to be performed by the party to the contract. Next base of distinction is insolvency of the buyer. In a sale, if a buyer becomes insolvent before he pays the price for the goods, insolvent means what? Left without money. Even though the goods sold are under the possession of the seller, the latter has to return them to the official receiver or assignee as the ownership of goods has already been transferred to the buyer. So the seller can claim only rateable dividend. The seller has to inevitably part with the possession of the goods under his custody. Next, what they are telling is, according to agreement to sell, if the buyer becomes insolvent, left without money, before the payment of the price, the seller can retain the goods with him. So the possession of the goods is not transferred to the buyer. In other words, the seller is not bound to lose possession of the goods. Next is insolvency of the seller. Here, the seller becomes insolvent. If the seller becomes insolvent in case of contract of sale before delivering the goods to the buyer can claim the delivery of the goods from the official receiver or assignee as the ownership is already passed on to the buyer. Here, in case of agreement to sell, the buyer cannot do so, but further, if the buyer has already paid the price of the goods or made any advance payment, if it is made by the buyer, he can claim only rateable dividend and not the goods, because the ownership in the goods is not yet passed to him. So here the seller can pay only certain dividend amount but not the goods to the buyer. With this, here this part gets over, students. So we have started with a new chapter and first part got over. We'll meet tomorrow, students. Thank you, students.